Croy, Vice President of Product Management and Marketing for Blue Cat Networks. I'm here today with Ron Aitchison. Hello, Ron. Who's actually the author of the Pro DNS and Bind book by A-Press. Also, Ron, you've got lots of experience from greater than 35 years just in telecommunications itself. Also, you've got greater than 10 years just in DNS. You also got that famous blogging site called DNS for Rocket Scientists. And you also recently joined the Technical Advisory Board for Blue Cat Networks. Welcome.
My pleasure entirely.
Tell me, Ron, what is DNS?
DNS in its basic format is a system to translate names into IP addresses. Names are easily understood by we human beings. We're comfortable with them. The address of Google, the address of whatever it may be. On the other hand, addresses that networks use, long strings of digits, completely incomprehensible to normal human beings. I have a hard time remembering my phone number. So that's, at its basic form, that's what it does. It translates names into IP addresses. Because of that, every time we make any access, we access a website, we send email, we do a search on the internet, the DNS system is involved. It makes that translation. Because of that, it's both invisible and critical.
And many people, like our audience that are listening right now, do searches on DNS error. Why do they find these kind of errors?
We could speculate for a long time about precisely what that could cover, but let me offer you three possibilities. The first is they just typed the wrong name in and gone off to somewhere different, and you'll typically get an error at that point saying website can't be found or whatever. The second possibility is there's been a genuine error, in which case you get a complete page blank. What that does is it clearly illustrates just how vitally important DNS is to the operation of the internet. The third possibility is that someone's clicked a link, a favorite, a link on a page, typed an address in, and they've gone off to somewhere completely different. They may have been trying to get to CNN.com as an example, and they've ended up at some very unpleasant site in turn. And that may have occurred because of security or lack of security in the DNS system, and specifically due to a phenomena called cache poisoning.
So what is cache poisoning?
Again, at its simplest level, Luke, cache poisoning means that we've got the wrong answer in the wrong place. You look at how a user gets from his PC to your website, let's say. You go through a series of what are called resolvers. Those resolvers' job is to translate the names into IP addresses. What can happen in that process is when the questions are asked of the authoritative name services, the systems that manage the names themselves, the wrong answer can be sent back by a malicious third party who's just sitting there sending bad answers. Once that gets into the resolver subsystem, the net effect is that the user goes to a very bad location. That's from the user's perspective. From the domain owner's perspective, they lose the traffic. And not only potentially lose the traffic, but because they're associated with it, they lose their reputation as well, possibly.
How would you prevent it?
And cache poisoning is a security problem with the DNS. So what we're talking about doing is applying one or more security policies. The objective of those security policies is to make sure that when the questions are asked, when the resolvers get to work, when the user tries to go to a particular site, that the questions go to the right place, and importantly, the right data comes back, and that no third parties, no malicious bad guys can interfere with that communication at all. So the user is guaranteed to have the right data. One of the policies, one of the major security policies, especially going forward, is a thing called DNSSEC.
Tell us a little bit more about DNSSEC.
DNSSEC is one of a number of secure ways in which the DNS can be secured. It's a fairly recent standard, been evolving over the last 5 years or thereabouts. It uses fairly complex cryptographic systems to ensure that the resolver, that's the thing that allows access from the user's perspective, the resolver, when it asks for the IP address of a particular name, it can only receive it from the domain owner's location, and the data that it gets back could only have come from that source. There can be no errors. We can stop all this cache poisoning stuff that we talked about previously. The standard DNSSEC is increasingly being pushed by those people, and increasingly being implemented as well by those people for whom security is very, very important. People in the financial services business, in government, in a variety of places.
So how do we get started?
The positive thing about DNSSEC is that it solves an awful lot of problems. It makes the internet a very, very secure place. The downside is it's a very complex standard. Complexity it has associated with it some element of risks. If we get it wrong, if we get the implementation wrong, the zone can go, in our jargon terms, the zone can go dark. It is unreachable under certain conditions. So it behoves us to think, to plan, to really get a good handle on the technology, which means that even if we don't plan to use it for maybe a year, we should be thinking very seriously about it now. We should be implementing it, we should be testing it, we should be getting our hands around it so that we really understand it, because sooner or later we are going to need it.
Is there something we can do to simplify the deployment of DNSSEC?
Yes, there is. It's my view, frankly, that this is impossible to do without the support of tools. It needs to be managed. It's impossible to do it manually. Most of the DNS processes we've seen up until this stage, it's been possible to execute manually. I believe that DNSSEC, frankly, does not fall into that category. So we're looking for a set of tools, management tools, to allow us to control the various processes, to make certain that our zone does not go dark, does not go off the air, no matter what happens. And that's too much of a risk to leave it to, I'm afraid, as pure, simple human beings. What I said earlier was that I don't believe that the process as complex as DNSSEC can be handled manually. It requires tools. Anything I can do to help work with people to make sure those tools are of the highest possible quality, solve the problem from the user perspective, I'm more than happy to do. And in this particular case, Blue Cat asked me to help them look at how we could optimize that process. That's the first point. The second point I think I'd make is that I think we have to influence, as an industry, we have to influence the environment in which all these tools operate. We have to, if you like, push out information, propagandize, to use a crude word, but we have to send a message out. And I believe Blue Cat can help me do that too.
Ron, thank you very much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
And if you want more information, you can pick up Ron's book, The Pro DNS and Bind Book, or hit the Contact Me button and we'll be in touch with you shortly. Thank you.